has subpoenaed the Justice Department, the FBI, for information about the fake news Russian dossier. NBC, CNN going to cover this. Representative Dana Rohrabacher's next. He also met with Julian Assange. We'll find out what that was about. Then later, Greg Jarrett, Sarah Carter are here with reaction as we continue. Welcome back to Hannity. Now, according to a report from the AP, the House Intel Committee has officially subpoenaed the Justice Department and the FBI for information related to the now debunked Trump-Russia dossier. Now, you might remember this dossier made, well, extremely obscene, fake allegations about then-candidate Trump. And according to a piece by Byron York in the Washington Examiner, quote, the subpoenas are an indication of growing frustration inside the committee over the FBI and Justice Department's lack of cooperation in the Trump-Russia investigation. Here with reaction, California Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. Congressman, how is that possible? Because, you know, how do they, if you have subpoenaed and you're a committee, how are they not turning this over to you, especially now that we know that it's false and phony and fraudulent?
Well, obviously what's happened is that the FBI and various people in our intelligence community have been politicized by this rule of liberal left Democrats. 8 years of control of our executive branch of government by one of the furthest left presidents we've ever had, if not the furthest left. This is politicized and degraded the quality and the standards of our intelligence community and the FBI. This is what Obama left us. How horrible is that?
You met with Julian Assange.
Yes.
I've interviewed him 5 times, radio and TV. WikiLeaks has never been proven wrong in 11 years. You told me on radio you believe him. And he's told you that he can prove, and he would be the one person that knows where the information came from that leaked on the DNC. He told you he has incontrovertible, irrefutable evidence that in fact shows Russia was not involved.
That's correct. And now when we realize if that's the case, that Russia was not involved in hacking or stealing those emails from the Democratic National Committee and then having them disclosed, once we know the Russians weren't involved, then we have to understand that this massive propaganda campaign, this historic con job that happened after the election to prevent our president from exercising the powers granted to him by the voters. This is one of the great crimes, political crimes against the American people in our history.
How confident are you, percentage-wise, that it was never Russia?
I would suggest that I'm 99% sure that it was not Russia, because Julian has made very clear that we're not relying on him. People say, well, who do you believe, our intelligence services or Julian? No, we're not talking about trust or believing someone. When this man says, I have hard evidence, that's what you do. You look at the evidence, and I will say that when he shows us the hard evidence and we have proof,
all right, here's the next
one.
Do you think in any way it could be related to the reason why, and I'm asking, and you investigate this, that it could be related in any way to the 33,000 deleted emails, the bleach bit acid wash, the destruction of Blackberries and iPhones, and maybe even Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her mess that she's got with her IT guy and busted up hard drives? Do you think they're all interrelated?
The liberal left establishment got a twofer on this. Number one, they tried to immobilize and disrupt our new president, negate what happened during the election. That's number one. But because they lost the election. Number two, however, they have been able to distract us from the real story here, the real crimes that were committed in Russia with the Russians, which was the Hillary Clinton Foundation, which is Podesta, which is all of these people who are working with the Russians.
I got to run. Will the American people get the absolute truth, and will it prove that the media and Democrats have lied about this? Will this all come out, and how soon?
I will tell you that I have submitted to Chairman Royce of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the chairman, a request for a hearing into Hillary and the Democrats who have been, and others.
And they'll be proven having lied to the American people?
That's right.
All right, sir. Thank you for being with us. When we come back, Why is the House Intel Committee having such a hard time getting answers about a debunked Trump-Russia dossier during the campaign? Greg Jarrett, Sarah Carter, they're next.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm meteorologist Rick Reichmuth. 3 storms we're watching in the Atlantic, 2 hurricanes. We have Katia by Mexico, Jose, and obviously the big one we're tracking here is Irma, just to the north of Puerto Rico right now. Fortunately, did not make it close enough to get the very strong hurricane force winds right on shore. It just went to the north. We know that it is going to continue to track off towards the west tomorrow, taking a beating across the Turks and Caicos, then in towards the Bahamas. It's after that, by Saturday, that we're going to watch a turn in this storm. Where that turn happens will cause very big implications for areas of Florida. What we know at this point, we are going to see impacts in Florida, possibly making a landfall of a hurricane here in South Florida. That said, if you were in Georgia and South Carolina, you need to be watching that closely. We will continue to track it and keep you up to date right here, right now. Back to Hannity.
And welcome back to Hannity here with more reaction to reports that the House Intel Committee has subpoenaed the Justice Department and the FBI for information about the fake news Trump-Russia dossier. Circa News, Sarah Carter, as well as Fox News anchor attorney Greg Jarrett. Sarah, we'll start with you. This was such a big deal. And didn't James Comey want to pay this guy Steele all this money for the phony Russia hookers rich story, going to the bathroom on a bed story that was proven false?
Well, I've spoken to sources on the Hill about this. This is something I've been looking into, Sean. And this is one of the questions they want answered. And this is one of the questions that they've been stonewalling on. They have been stonewalling members of Congress, and particularly Chairman Nunes, others like Trey Gowdy, Chairman Grassley with the Judiciary Committee on all of these questions. They want to know, did the FBI verify anything in that dossier before they used it to do anything like issue FISA warrants, to begin an investigation?
Didn't they pay Steele? Didn't Steele pay money to Russians to get the intel that we know now is false?
Yes, we do know that Steele did pay some money to Russians, and allegedly they're looking at who paid Steele. So what we're hearing is, and this is information that's coming from sources, that it was possibly a never-Trumper at first that began this original inquiry into Trump to put the dossier together, and then other people became involved. And this is what the committees want to know. The House committee wants to know, the Intelligence Committee wants to know, what did the FBI use? What were they looking at? Did they verify anything in there before they went forward with an investigation? And if they didn't, that raises enormous questions, Sean, because that means they would have started this investigation. And remember, they briefed the president on this salacious dossier, and a lot of it has been proven false.
Right,
they even briefed the president on this.
You add this part of Comey, because the Steele pays Russians to get phony information on Trump, and Comey wants to hire the guy.
Right.
The same Comey that exonerated Hillary before an investigation?
Yeah, it all smacks of corruption and a cover-up and crimes. It's an abuse of power for a government official to develop opposition research on a presidential candidate. It's a violation of the Hatch Act. You are not allowed to use your public office for political purposes. So the only way to get to the bottom of this is to force the Department of Justice and the FBI to turn over the documents and testify. And if they don't, then the committee should move one of two things. Criminal contempt, as in the Eric Holder case, in which people could be held criminally responsible, or civil contempt, in which you sue the FBI and force them through a federal judge to turn over the documents.
The fact that he had a conclusion before an investigation, on top of everything else that we know with Comey, leaking to get a special counsel, is beyond corrupt. Here's my next question. We just had Dana Rohrabacher on.
Yeah.
I've interviewed Julian Assange 5 times.
Right.
Julian Assange is the one guy in the world that
tells
knows
the truth.
Okay, he's never been proven wrong in 11 years.
Right.
Unlike like the New York Times and Washington Post and CNN. So here's my question. Does Mueller have an obligation to go and try and find out from the one person that knows where that information about emails, DNC, all came from?
He absolutely does, but don't expect him to do it. That would be a fidelity to the law and his duty as special counsel. So he doesn't want to get to the truth?
No,
of course not. I mean, look, Robert Mueller, it appears to me, this is my opinion, has an agenda. He's in bed with James Comey for an act of retribution for the firing of Comey to go after the President of the United States and bring him down. He has a complicit mainstream media helping him along.
What do you think, Sarah, last question, I'm running out of time, about Julian knows the answer. Now, apparently Dana Rohrabacher wants to meet with the president, but I guess maybe because it's anything Russia-related, probably his lawyers are saying no. I want to know what message Dana has, and I want, if Julian Assange has evidence that would prove it was never Russia and the media and Democrats lied to us for a year, how big a scandal is that?
It's a huge scandal, and it would only do Mueller justice to go out. The one person that knows this is going to be Julian Assange. He's the one that got the information. So if he wants to close this case, if he wants to loop it around full circle, he has to go to Julian Assange, and he needs to speak with him because the information is there.
All right, thank you both. Good to see you both. When we come back, last night I went one-on-one with Jorge Ramos about President Trump's plan to be constitutional and let Congress decide on DACA. Geraldo Rivera, Ari Fleischer weigh in. Then later, Tommy Lahren, Dr. Gina Loudon, Jessica Tarlov, they'll react to Hillary Clinton's latest campaign loss excuse. Yes, she's come up with another one, and it's not her. You cannot ask that the United States burn its Constitution, stomp all over it, in the process of doing what you want. You have to understand we're a nation of laws. Do you respect that?
We're talking about children who are already here.
I understand, but they're here illegally.
Your children and my children.
They're not here legally. But you have time. The good news for you, Jorge,
it is not their fault.
I love your
heart. It is not their fault, Sean. You do understand it's not their fault.
I admire you, but you're missing the main point.
Really,
it has to be legal. We can't burn the Constitution just to do what Jorge Ramos wants. You've got to do it legally. Welcome back to Hannity, part of our fiery debate last night with Jorge Ramos right here on this program. Joining us now with their take on President Trump's DACA decision, Fox News correspondent at large Geraldo Rivera, who wouldn't admit that I was right constitutionally last night, and White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer under George W. Bush, Fox News contributor. Geraldo, the enumerated powers, co-equal branches of government. President Obama, I just played it earlier tonight, admitted he didn't have the authority to do DACA, and he did it anyway. That's lawlessness.
You know, Sean, on the ride over here, I'm broadcasting from Cleveland, Ohio. Our governor, John Kasich, the Republican who was the second to the last man standing in the primaries, as you recall.
How many states did he win? What did he win Ohio by?
He won this one. He won the Buckeye State. But he also, and this is the news I bring you, said that he would have Ohio be a sanctuary state for any dreamer who is being deported. I mean, that shows the division even within the Republican Party about this issue.
Okay, but legally Trump is right. And let's be fair. You should be happy tonight. He gave 8 months, and now he's given 6 months more for Congress to do their job. That seems fair.
Think another thing Governor Kasich said is that it should take 6 hours, not 6 months, to get this done. These are the most vetted group of immigrants in the history of this country. We know exactly who they are. They've been fingerprinted. They have been background checked. They have no criminal record. They are either in school or they are gainfully employed or they're in the United States military. What are we going to do with the 500 DACA dreamers who are in the U.S. military? Are we going to deport them? I pray that my friend, the President of the United States, and it seems to me that he has given every indication, will protect this group of young people. They came in at the average age of 6, and they're now in their early 20s, and they're good people.
Here's my problem with what Geraldo was saying. Why I am a George W. Bush comprehensive immigration reform Republican, and I'm proud to say I want to have a compromise. It has to be based on the rule of law. Presidents cannot willy-nilly, because Congress can't get its act together, pass laws by themselves. Does President Trump have the right to say to the IRS, stop enforcing a 35% corporate tax rate? As long as they put down 20, 25%, let it go. You can't do that when you're the president. You don't have the power.
Obama admitted it.
Obama admitted it, and then he went out in a re-election and did the opposite. And this is degenerative of our ability to be a self-governing democracy. Presidents cannot do that.
You're repeating Obama. He said
this is one of the things that created Donald Trump. It was the antagonism, the animosity that the public grew up saying the president's doing wrong. Here's the compromise, and it's crying out. The Democrats should give Trump the wall and tough border enforcement, and Republicans should give dreamers. Legalize Dreamers. That'd be appropriate. It'd be fine. It'd be
Geraldo's
fitting.
clapping in Cleveland. I guarantee you.
But that'd be a great compromise. And whether the wall is 2,200 miles or 2,100 miles or 1,500, and the experts say, the point is you secure the borders.
Good to see both of you. And coming up, Hillary Clinton, she continues to make yet more excuses for her big election loss. Oh, now she's blaming Bernie Sanders for her crooked Hillary nickname. Tommy Lahren, Dr. Gina Loudon, and Jessica Tarlov weigh in next. All right, welcome back to Hannity. All right, Hillary Clinton's blame game just continues. She has a brand new book, as you know, entitled What Happened? Well, Trump happened. Now, Clinton says it was her former competitor, Bernie Sanders, who, quote, paved the way for then-candidate Donald Trump to call her crooked Hillary. Now, she also knocked President Obama for his advice regarding Sanders during the campaign, saying, quote, President Obama urged me to grit my teeth and lay off poor Bernie as much as I could. I felt like I was in a straitjacket. Here was a reaction. Fox News contributor Tommy Lahren, radio, TV, talk show host Dr. Gina Loudon, Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. Does she ever blame Hillary?
She does.
When would she ever blame Hillary for being a horrible candidate that is corrupt?
Well, she's not going to sit there and say, hey, I'm a horrible candidate. But she certainly has talked about some of her weaknesses as a candidate.
Okay, but she blames, Tommy, everybody but herself.
Well, of course she did. I think it's also important to remember that she had to get help from the DNC just to beat Bernie, and now she wants to blame Bernie. The list of people that she has yet to blame is probably a shorter list than the one that she's already using to blame everyone and their mother for her loss. Hillary, what happened? You happened.
Ouch.
Well, it's a little bit more than what you happened, and I do think, and we were just talking about this, it is important to discuss the dynamic within the Democratic Party between the progressive left and a more moderate centrist bloc, which is where Hillary Clinton belongs. The majority of the party is. Bernie Sanders went out there and said that she wasn't qualified.
The party's going more left. You know this is true.
Terrible.
And they've overreached on Russia. All right, let me ask Gina Loudon. I am going to rely on the fact that you are a psychologist. Don't ever psychoanalyze me. You can do Tommy and Jessica.
Time. She does me all the time.
Okay, but there's something wrong if you don't have any introspective qualities. For example, I do a lot of wrong things in my life, but I know it. And I know every time I do something wrong. It's like ding, 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 ding. You know, a little voice in my head yelling at me, but I can do it anyway. So you basically declare I'm nuts. Go ahead.
In writing this tell-all, Sean, I believe Hillary exposed herself in ways that no pundit, no collusion evidence, no bleach bit could ever have done. Who writes a tell-all, Sean, bashing and blaming her own party right after a national election? This isn't when you write a tell-all. You write a tell-all years later. This tells you that for Hillary, once and for all, case closed. The American people know it. This was always about one thing, and that is Hillary.
If you had to diagnose,
it was all about Hillary.
What is the diagnosis?
We can't do that.
All right, I won't ask you to do it.
Don't do it, because you don't like it when people say Trump is insane.
You can't.
Okay, that's
you can't diagnose people without actually clinically.
They have everyone that says it as Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh, and Gina has been up there, by the way, and she said things about President Obama and his mental condition. Let's lay off the mental analysis.
Tommy, how does she not recognize that she is crooked? It's like, hello, mirror, take a look.
Well, here's the thing. Even if we're not talking about how crooked she is, which we know how I feel about that subject, the fact of the matter is she didn't show up. She forgot the average American.
Great point.
That is on her. She can't blame anyone else for that. So you can have any theory you want. We can talk about Hillary's mental capacity, her mental state. I don't even care about that. Show up. Show up in the places where the traditional Democrats would have voted for you. You didn't show up. You lost. Get over it. Go back to Whole Foods. Let's move on.
All right, guys. Good to see you all. Thanks for being with us. And when we come back, conservative Twitter sensation Terrence Williams is back. Go to bed. He has the final word. Straight ahead.